Hi, everybody. Welcome inside the locker room for Week 13. I'm John Collins, Aston McLaren to my right, Mike Omalon off the screen, and to my left, we have Jordan here at Shark Club Yonge and Dundas. Great place to watch Monday Night Football. We always enjoy the game here, and Jordan's going to tell you why.
So on Monday nights we have our Spiked Frappuccino on for $4.99, as well as we have our pints of Budweiser for $5.50. We also have our NFL wings on tonight for 39 cents a wing, so a pound comes out to less than $5, so it's a really good deal. We also have our steak sandwich for $12.99.
Steak sandwich is dinner every Monday night, guys. It's not too bad. You should come in and try it out. Just say hello to us or to Jordan. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy tonight.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Okay, with that, let's get down to it. There's a storyline from yesterday. Hey, Mikey, welcome. There's a storyline from yesterday I probably want to start with, but I feel like we're duty-bound instead to begin with the Cleveland Browns conversation. We saw our first bit. Of Johnny Moneymaker yesterday. That's a jumping-off point. What do you think?
Initial thoughts were, wow, this guy is electric. I love it. Sign me up. Put the waiver claims in or what?
Put him in.
Put him in. I like it. And one reason we like it, Josh Gordon's there, and he's fast. And he gets to run yards.
And he's got his legs, right? So that's absolutely a reason that he could be a productive fantasy quarterback. Brian Hoyer had weeks where he was a productive quarterback as well. If we want to be real about critically assessing the game, number one, it came against a pretty tough defense. That first drive had some pluses and minuses, right? He takes a pass. I think we were talking about this during the game. The pass to Jim Dre to set up eventually Manziel's touchdown run. Squeezes it into a tight window, sure, but he should have never thrown the ball.
No, that was horrible. You're going to get away with that once in 100 times.
That was a bullet, though.
It wasn't. That's some zip, dude, but it wasn't a well-advised throw. Then he gets the snap on the next possession that I don't know if he should have been ready for it. I don't know if it was a miscommunication or what, but you take that ball and you throw it away. Instead, he's trying to make a play, and that's what you're going to get with Johnny, right? You're going to get a little bit of like the fast Brett Favre mentality, a run slinger, we should call him.
Expect some minus ones.
I like it.
Expect some minus ones or twos, but you'll be happy with those sixes with his legs he can put on the board.
Absolutely. And so about the Manziel waiver claim, a lot of what I want to talk about tonight on air, and also in my touches and targets piece, in our waiver piece coming up, is rest of season schedule. We could probably do a better job of paying attention to that the 16 weeks of the regular season, but certainly now, after week 13, you're really starting to think about that. Next week, I think it's next week, plays the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
Now, the Colts passing defense has been, hit or miss all season, but they're dealing with some serious injuries. Of course, it certainly helped that Vontae Davis went down with a concussion yesterday during the game, but this is not an elite unit. They just allowed Colt McCoy to pass for 390 yards and no interceptions against them. You like that matchup for Manziel. It gets a little tougher the sledding after that, but assuming that he starts in week 14, Mike Pettin hasn't made a commitment just yet. Worth an ad, worth a back end one play?
Yeah. I don't know. If you're the kind of guy who's been streaming all year, if you got if you draft a guy like a Nick Foles, Carson Palmer who's been hurt, you've had to just find the next best option each and every week, then absolutely, Johnny Manziel is on your radar. Teddy Bridgewater has the Carolina Panthers next week. That's another one I'm high on for sure. You got to look at that stuff, and Manziel definitely worth consideration there, and definitely the cheap play.
And he's going to be a nice daily game play because of his legs, because of his upside, and the presumed price tag against the Colts.
Yeah, that is a presumed price. It could not be so cheap.
And who knows? If we're setting it on market value, it's probably going to be like way too high. Yeah. But we'll see how it comes out.
Yeah, and perfect, dilemma question here. I'm in playoff in one of my leagues. I got Cam Newton. Very disappointed. He's had one really good game this year, maybe two or three, the 18 to 20 range. I got the claim on Johnny Football, and I'm probably starting Johnny Manziel playoff season on the line over Cam.
Is that in NFL.com?
No.
Okay, because I might have a claim in on Manziel and NFL.com.
Yeah.
and you guys are both ahead of me both in the waiver wire, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But I'm in the same situation with
Yeah.
Cam, which is obviously why it's not the same league.
Yeah, New Orleans. Carolina's going against New Orleans. In New Orleans, though, first game at Carolina against New Orleans, Cam did nothing. So what's he gonna do on the road? Very loud environment. Both seasons kind of on the line. Not on the line, really.
New Orleans is not stopping anyone on either side of the ball right now, though. In fairness to Cam, and I'm going to come back. Right, and I'm going to come back to the Saints in a bit. He's been up and down, and you look at a guy like Manziel. In Week 16, Cam gets Atlanta. Am I right?
Week 17.
Okay. Well, he's got two juicy matchups to close the season.
Against
One of them
Pittsburgh.
being New Orleans. At any rate, I'm having the same kind of conversation with myself about him to close the season. You start looking at matchup. I mean, you play the guys that got you here as a general rule for your fantasy playoffs, but there are weeks when it's going to make sense to make big decisions. I sure wish I'd picked up Ryan Tannehill and started him instead of Cam this week coming into tonight's matchup, and those are things you want to think about. Yeah. Back to the Browns. I think we've covered Manziel. I mean, there's upside there, there's downside there. Look at the matchups, give it a thought. Definitely worth an ad. Running game now. Isaiah Crowell yesterday. Well, you knew it was going to be Crowell. You knew Crowell was going to lead it. And you knew Buffalo's front seven was pretty good, right? So am I disappointed by a 29-yard rushing effort from Isaiah Crowell? Absolutely. But he held that job. He was given 17 carries yesterday, 18 touches. Terrence West barely touches the ball. He goes 7 for 32, has a better day, but he has a costly fumble as well. And Mike Pettin comes out after the game and says, that was inexcusable, the fumble. So I think we assume that this is Crowell's game, Crowell's situation moving forward. Do we not?
Yeah.
Backfield belongs to him.
It's going to be so tentative. They've been basing it off of practice weeks all year long. And, that's produced big games here and there from both Isaiah Crowell and Terrence West. Now you have guys fumbling in the game. That's been their biggest strength all year. They've both been able to hang on to the ball. Throws going away yesterday.
And that was the demise of Brian Hoyer as well, of course, right? So knowing that turnovers are clearly a focus for a team that has little margin for error, both in terms of the standings and in terms of the number of points they're going to put on the board every week, they're looking for ball security right now, and I think that really does hurt Terrence West the rest of the season.
Next week, we're talking about again. They got that matchup. They're at home against the Colts. I like both. We saw Jonas Gray put up a stat-corrected 201 yards against them just a couple weeks back.
What happened to that guy?
I know. He slept in. Something I tend to do.
It was the most costly hour of sleep he's ever had in his life.
Yeah.
You'd be cut by the Patriots in a hurry.
Yeah. But the Colts.
Many reasons.
They've kind of, their defense is, like you said, they're not elite by any standards. They've kind of it seems every other week
Colt
they're getting,
just passed for 400 yards against them.
I know.
Conversation over.
They're like when you look maybe at the fantasy points. Sometimes you see a 15-point game for them. They're getting some turnovers and touchdowns. That's why. But it's not a strong defense.
They don't get a lot of pressure on the quarterback.
When they play a good offensive team,
a guy like Manziel is going to have time to improvise back there. I'm actually pretty interested in that.
That should help the run game, right? With Manziel, how do you think that would help?
100%. I mean, they're going to do a little read option. They're going to have a little fun. I think it helps everybody. Josh Gordon
looks so good on that play action fake, Johnny Manziel. Look nice.
I'm saying.
Josh Gordon doesn't need much help.
Well, Josh Gordon doesn't need much help, and Josh Gordon, I don't think it makes a degree of difference who his quarterback is. He had 12 targets yesterday after a whole bunch the week before. He's going to be a double-digit target guy the rest of the way. Really interesting. Every catch he had yesterday was underneath. He's working his way back in. He obviously wasn't clearly connected with Brian Hoyer. In fact, his longest depth of target came on the one completion that Manziel had in his direction yesterday. Everything else was short to intermediate routes, and he still put up 75 yards. This guy's going to break out. It's a tough slate after Indy the rest of the way for Cleveland, but I'm not at all worried about Josh Gordon. Love that volume. QB change doesn't hurt him. Of interest, Miles Austin has a kidney issue, but he also had 7 catches yesterday. Yeah, he looked good. You see him try to go up over the guy.
Yeah, I think that's
And
just
he was
like,
like-
Manziel's first completion.
Yeah,
he was excited. For
he
trying
was
to go
all
ball.
fired up for Johnny, and he's a good teammate, but he's also got some 34-year-old
Yeah.
knees, and it just didn't look good. I assume that's the play that he hurt himself on as well. So,
Probably.
but he goes 8 targets yesterday. I believe he had 7 targets the week prior. Actually, I think he had 9, giving him 17 in the 2 weeks since we've seen Josh Gordon come back. Whereas Andrew Hawkins has had just 8. If Miles Austin is healthy, there is no upside here, but he is a PPR play of interest, maybe a daily game guy. He's getting a lot of work with Gordon in the lineup. Pardon me. I mean, he's worth a look.
Yeah, I'll give you that. It certainly takes away from Andrew Hawkins. We were all high on
Right.
Andrew Hawkins when Josh Gordon came back.
Just 3 targets yesterday.
Yeah,
against
I
Buffalo.
don't know if Miles Austin is a legitimate number 2 there, or if you're best off to avoid both of them.
Perhaps. I'm not putting him in a standard league, I'll tell you that, because your cap is 80 yards. Cap. If you're in a PPR league, you're going to like the targets. But again, that's all contingent on whether he's able to play this week or not. If he's not, and Jordan Cameron comes back, there's some interesting stuff going on there. Rookie quarterback and tight end.
So it's a good combo.
That's a whole lot of Cleveland Browns, guys. Are we good?
Yeah, so
All right. So probably should have asked the question after my beer. Let you go for another minute.
How about we talked about the Browns a whole bunch, and how about the team that they're facing, the Indianapolis Colts? Direct message: Dante Moncrief had himself a game.
Dante Moncrief sent a direct message, said, "Never play me behind Hakeem Nicks again."
I know.
Yeah, he had a great game. He only had 4 targets
Direct
yesterday.
message to the coach: give me some more PT.
Give me some more time.
yeah,
Come on.
that guy's still playing under 45% of snaps, more than Akeem Nicks.
So yesterday he plays more snaps than Hakeem Nicks. He plays 28. Nicks has 17 and doesn't get targeted.
Yeah, he's been much more effective than Reggie Wayne, but Reggie Wayne's going to be out there because he's Reggie Wayne. It's frustrating for people like us who want to play Dante Moncrief, who
Right.
know Dante Moncrief's upside's higher. But,
Well, I'm here to say I don't know about every week, but next week
Don't tell Wayne he's slowed down, though. Don't tell him that, because he does not like the
Hey,
suggestion.
next week I'm starting Moncrief over Reggie Wayne. If that's my choice, I'm doing it. Reggie Wayne, too slow. He's too slow. He's not getting done. He's constantly getting 3-4 catches, 30 yards.
Five
He's not doing it.
targets, 4 catches, 31 yards yesterday. And you look at what Moncrief can do with the ball in his hands. Now, interestingly, next week, they get Joe Hayden in the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
Hayden's done a pretty nice job. I know Sammy Watkins hasn't produced much lately,
Yeah.
but he was all over Watkins yesterday. Watkins targeted 5 times against Hayden, no catches, 3 catches on his other 3 targets. So you wonder if that's going to relegate T.Y. Hilton, who's been on fire, and you can't bench him. But that's going to take Hilton out of the game plan a little bit, and you're going to see a whole lot of single coverage against Dante Moncrief.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a GPP play, I think, depending on how his price goes this week. He is tough to use in a playoff scenario, I think, but he absolutely has more upside than Reggie Wayne.
We saw
Hakeem Nicks is out of here.
saw Revis cover Wayne a bit, split with Wayne and Hilton. So I think that might be the same
Indeed.
with Hayden. So I think Moncrief, Colts, they're slowly, finally starting to realize, let's get our playmakers some time. No more Hakeem Nicks. So
Absolutely.
Moncrief, stock up. I'm giving
They're gonna
I'm giving it a shot against Cleveland because of Hayden. He'll get
Absolutely. And actually, back to the 45% of your snaps thing, that number one is going to grow because they play a lot of 3 wide sets, right? This is an offense that can use 3 receivers. Now, Dwayne Allen comes back next week, and Kobe Fleener had a great game yesterday. So they both get some time, of course, but still, you're going to see a lot of 3 receivers. You're probably not going to see a lot of Trent Richardson.
No, never again.
It's over. I'm done. I'm done.
I'm off. Here comes the boom, baby.
Boom, Heron, 8 carries, 88 yards, loses another fumble. Pagano says,
Whatever. What are you gonna do?
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
He had more yards yesterday than Trent Richardson's had in 26 games as a starting running back for the Indianapolis Colts.
They got a rushing touchdown
he sucks.
for 10 yards.
saying.
How's that happen?
Sucks.
Yeah.
John probably admitted it. That's
I'm-
the last. No
I am the last guy that would tell you to go ahead and use Trent
Yeah,
Richardson. I said it
so
here in this space.
write him off.
It's over.
This guy's gonna have a tough time making team next year.
Yeah,
Probably not.
I feel like he's probably not. You're absolutely right. Mike, just back to your point about Moncrief. I'm still not going to rank him as a top 36 receiver next week. I think he'd be crazy too. But if you need a flex play, if you need some upside, if you've got some holes, he's a guy worth a look. Absolutely. Now, there's another guy, Eston, in your waiver piece at wide receiver who I actually will probably use before I use Moncrief next week. Who is it?
Marquise Lee.
Absolutely.
No, this guy, ever since Allen Robinson went down, the fellow rookie wide receiver in Jacksonville, Marquise Lee is the one picking up the slack. Cecil Shorts, never heard of him. Totally factored out there. It's Marquise Lee's team 2 weeks in a row. He's led the team in receiving.
Absolutely.
11 targets yesterday.
7
Not
yesterday. 7.
just 7? Okay. After 11 the week before.
5 the week.
Okay, well, he had 11 something.
Sorry.
75 yards and a touchdown.
But he's
Yeah,
got.
day.
75
Here's what he's
yards,
got.
touchdown.
He's got a dozen targets since the Robinson injury, and that's more than any other receiver on the team. Cecil Short's doing his work over the middle. I mean, he's going to get the same, probably comparable amount of targets, but they're not quality targets. They're middle of the field, inside the 20s, 10 yards at a time targets. Marquise Lee is getting lots of work on the outside.
and a lot in the red zone as well.
And a lot in the red zone. He produces the touchdown yesterday. I mean, this is a guy with a great draft profile, right? He was he was a first round receiver, second round receiver, the fourth
45th
receiver off the
overall,
board.
Yeah, he was like a top, I think, around the 4th, 5th receiver taken.
He was the first Jaguar receiver, of course, taken. They have a whole complement of rookies there. They were saying early in the year that it was taking him some time to get used to the NFL, to show the maturity that they wanted him to show, and to figure out the playbook. Well, he's had a lot of time just kind of biding his time to figure that out. Opportunity presents itself with the injury to Robinson, and I like what I've seen from him. Seven targets, 5 catches, 75 yards yesterday, and a touchdown. And I don't know that there's a team with an easier wide receiver schedule the rest of the way. Houston next week. Jonathan Joseph has been blown up in coverage all season. They are the number 2 points allowed defense to wide receivers. The next week, Baltimore Ravens, the number 1 points allowed defense to wide receivers. And then in week 16, your championship weekend, they take on the Tennessee Titans, a cornerback named Bleedy Ray Wilson, who ranks as the 4th worst cornerback in all of football by Pro Football Focus. He's given up, I think, 6 receiving touchdowns this year.
Well, yeah, defense just gave up 6 touchdowns
to Ryan Fitzmagic. Absolutely. And to DeAndre Hopkins taking the top off. We'll get to him in a bit. But not a friendlier schedule in the league than the Jaguars to close the season for receivers. And I think that you have to say that Marquise Lee is the guy to lead that trio right now. You know, even Allen Hurns, he's only 16% owned, is worth a look because of that schedule. But for me, Marquise Lee's probably my number 1 priority this week, unless I want to get my hands on Johnny Manziel.
And I think going into next year as well,
Absolutely.
Value Marquise Lee sky high. I think Cecil Shorts III, he's getting the cut as well. Joining Trent Richardson.
Yeah, they're going to go youth movement there. Absolutely.
They're going to have Allen Robinson. They're going to have Marquise Lee.
Justin
Blackman,
yeah.
we talked about last week, might be there as well, as long as he doesn't break any more laws between now and then. On his way to reinstatement.
Did you get him? Blackman?
Those 3 wide receivers, Allen Hurns the 4th. Cecil Shorts gone. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I like the whole situation, frankly, for Blake Bortles yesterday, who had a very nice game-winning drive twice. I like that whole situation there. I do. And I like Marquise Lee this week and moving forward. Absolutely.
I got another tough question. Well, this one league's killing me. Like this Cam, hate it. But so next week I had Marquise Lee. I was keeping my eye on him. For my flex spot, it's going to be between Marquise Lee or Jordan Matthews, who's been pretty great. But, Seattle, they are coming on defense, baby.
It's true, actually.
They are hitting hard.
Did a very nice job, of course, against San Francisco in their passing game. And the lowest fantasy points allowed to wide receivers on the season. When I offhandedly said you start Jordan Matthews, hadn't thought about the matchup. And indeed,
and I think you might. I still might start Matthews because I think Macklin might be the odd man out on that game. He might get more like maybe Sherman's on him.
Sure, absolutely.
So Macklin might be behind both Matthews and Marquise Lee, baby. Those Seahawks, baby.
Which is a gutsy ranking statement to make, but in terms of final production, you may not be wrong. They've done a very nice job. Richard Sherman had probably the best game I've watched him play yesterday, and this week, and that says a lot because he's had some good football games. To your point, actually, Jordan Matthews was the third most targeted receiver there. Riley Cooper had more looks at him this week, even though he and Sanchez weren't on the same page. Just an interesting situation. I still like Jordan Matthews as a 2 most of the rest of the season. Probably not this week against Seattle. Any other guys of note in your waiver piece?
We talked briefly about Colt McCoy, number 1 quarterback. Colt the real McCoy. Throw that one out there. He looked good. He looked darn good. Lost 4 fumbles. 0 interceptions though, so you got to assume he's going to hold on to that ball a little bit tighter going forward. The rest of what he did was great.
And he's thrown for 299 yards or more in the 2 games that he's played. I mean, I used McCoy in daily fantasy yesterday everywhere, and I mean, I didn't have a couple of the big games, so I didn't totally clean up, but I was sure happy to have him at his price tag, and he probably will be moving forward, although they do have some tough matchups on the slate.
I think the Rams are next week.
Yes, the Rams are next week,
which
is a Trey Mason conversation. Can we do that?
Sure.
It's actually a little further down my list, but Trey Mason yesterday won. What a game, right? This guy, I've been saying it all along, he's had 4 of the toughest matchups to start his starting running back career that you could possibly imagine. It hasn't been easy sledding for him. He finally gets a matchup that he can exploit, and he runs all over Oakland. The Raiders come out flat yesterday, obviously, after a big emotional victory on Thursday the week prior, and Mason takes advantage. He was huge. That 89-yard touchdown run, the acceleration on that, boom, hole and gone.
I haven't seen someone rush touchdown that quickly, almost ever. He was just
he was a bolt.
Lightning bolt. Boom. It was impressive.
Are we good on all the compliments to Trey Mason? He had a nice profile. He profiled as a good back with great acceleration coming out of the draft, kind of a one-cut guy that hits the hole hard. That's exactly what he showed you yesterday. But are we good with Love?
Yeah.
More Love? How damn good is he?
All right, he's good. But I'm saying I'm covered because I want to move on to some disappointing information about Trey Mason. I like this matchup against Oakland. I was talking all about it.
Redskins next week.
I put him in our must-start. Yeah, and the Redskins' run defense, not that bad.
Gave up 88 yards to Daniel Harris.
And 12 to Trent Richardson. They gave up 100 yards on 16 attempts. That's still a generous defense, absolutely. But they've actually, in terms of fantasy scoring, been pretty consistent all season and in recent weeks. That run defense is, they're quick in pursuit of the ball. There won't be as many holes, certainly, next week for Trey Mason. He's absolutely a start-worthy RB2. Let's just not jump all over yesterday's performance and call him a 1. After Washington, they take on Arizona. That is a tough defense against the run.
Steven Jackson had a 100-yard game, too.
He did. That's a fact, but that's 1 week.
Yeah, that's one of the most impressive things I took away from Sunday. Steven Jackson, 100 yards against the Cardinals.
And there's another conversation. We're going to jump off on that in 1 second, Dan. That's great. Point is, 2 tough matchups. He's an RB2. Let's not get too excited. If you've got some, if you've got a Mark Ingram and a LaShawn McCoy type, you're probably leaving him in reserve.
Ingram against the Panthers, yeah.
I just don't want you to overreact to one huge game. It was huge. It was awesome. It was on display. And we know he has the talent. But not everybody is the Oakland Raiders, is all I'm saying. Except, who?
Washington.
Over Mark Ingram?
Against the Panthers.
That is a tough call.
Saying.
Mark Ingram's not getting inside.
When you're starting him without a single question is in week 16. Not everybody is the Oakland Raiders. The New York Giants against the run are the Oakland Raiders. Sure. Use him with full authority in week 16. I'm just saying don't bite too hard on a big game yesterday. Now, Steven Jackson, you liked his game yesterday.
Pretty impressive because, the Cardinals' top 3 run defense put up 100 yards. He looked good. I thought he was he's had some decent games this year. One after a bye, which I was looking for. He's got some rest, but I was surprised getting 18 carries against the Arizona Cardinals.
18 carries and 35 snaps is kind of his shtick, though, right? That's kind of what he does. He plays less than 50% of the snaps every week, but when he's in the game, he gets work. And I think it's to your point about kind of keeping him fresh, right? They don't want him playing useless snaps. He's a veteran, 31 years old. They're trying to work him in. That offense has looked a lot better.
Yeah. Julio Jones finally bouncing back. to elite receiver status. That guy was dirt cheap in DFS yesterday. I think it was like $6,300, cheaper than guys like Mike Evans. I got him in one. Very happily rewarded for that one. That team.
That team is turning around. They're in the
Falcons
division.
did have the lead, so they're running it late, which they haven't done a lot this year.
Well, and also he was bolstered by a 55-yard carry if we're going back to Jackson. Julio Jones, great game, wide receiver 1 status. Although, of course, Roddy White comes back and that plays a role. Harry Douglas had 11 targets yesterday, so whatever. Steven Jackson, 18 carries, a $101, nice game, but it was boosted by 55 yards in his first 3 carries, right? Yeah. The rest of the day was pretty much standard fare. I'm not too excited about Steven Jackson, next week or the week after, but in week 16, they play the New Orleans Saints. The Saints, of course, yesterday got blown up by Le'Veon Bell. Yes, 260 some odd total yards yesterday, 29 touches. Shake and bake in the run game. There was a point in that game after Big Ben injures his hand that he's in there. He can't hold the ball. He's handing the ball off with his odd hand. They know the run is coming, and they still can't stop Le'Veon Bell. They drive it for a field goal. I thought that was absolutely crazy. And that tells me just how bad New Orleans is against the run right now. We knew that. They're down men, and they weren't very good to start with. Rest of season schedule, New Orleans Saints, Carolina Panthers next week, Chicago Bears. You were starting Forte anyway, but you're loving him in week 15. And then Steven Jackson, who I think is absolutely going to be worth a start in your fantasy championship weekend because of that matchup.
I
think you're starting Jonathan Stewart.
And you can get behind Jonathan Stewart next week. He's only 27.
Williams might be out too, right?
Yeah, Williams missed some time this week. Stewart played 45 snaps to Williams' 12. He's only 27% owned in Yahoo League, so he's out there in most of them. And he's a guy I'm probably going to end up ranking without having looked at it in the 18 to 22 range based on matchup alone. Like, he had 14 touches yesterday, 110 total yards in another soft matchup, and against Minnesota, who's actually a lot stronger, pardon me, than New Orleans, but not the strongest defense out there. Looked pretty good running the ball, has been the most electric, and has been hampered by D'Angelo Williams. Yeah. If Williams is out of the lineup, he's a full go against New Orleans.
I think Williams broke his hand. He broke
his hand?
He might have,
It's a hand injury. I didn't realize it was that significant.
Finger.
So we're going to see if he's going to go. If there is no Williams, you're absolutely rolling Stewart. But even if he plays, you're going to look at 15 touches against the Saints defense. It just hasn't done a damn thing. They haven't stopped anybody. Giving up yards in the receiving game, as we saw with Le'Veon Bell yesterday, 450 total yards to backs over their last 2 games. Like, hello, let's go. I'm running everybody out there against the Saints the rest of the way, and that includes Steven Jackson in week 16, and it might even include Devonta Freeman, depending on my scoring format and my depth of my league. So, yeah, take advantage.
That Carolina team, that's pretty bad. They're looking pretty bad, though.
Yeah, it ain't been good. It's not been good.
Quick note, like a Stephen, we talked about Trey Mason going against the Redskins next week. Kind of reverting back to my boy Dante Moncrief. Yes, I love him. He's got some skill, but that secondary in Washington is a mess. They do not know how to cover. He just ran straight. And so if you're thinking about sleepers, Stedman, Bailey, 5 catches, 100 yards. I'm putting Bailey. He might be
and if St.
a
Louis,
great play.
If St. Louis had to try in the second half, he might have gone for 200 yards yesterday, Stedman Bailey. He had all those catches, all but one, I think, in the first half of the game.
Either way, they're turning heads. Like, who do I cover? What?
So I think that's a huge point. Yesterday, even with Reggie Wayne only doing work over the middle of the field, boosted by Dante Moncrief's big day, Andrew Luck threw for 13.7 yards per attempt yesterday. That's huge, even for Andrew Luck. Great game. I mean,
370. 10 300-yard games.
Like 27 passes or something stupid. Like,
you know who's never done that? Peyton Manning, 10 300 yards. Andrew Luck.
In a season. Yeah, okay.
Set records. There's still a couple more games left.
It's because they can't run the damn ball. That's why. I mean, he might threaten that yardage record. I know there's only so many games left.
Baby.
Washington secondary gave up 13.7 to one of the best quarterbacks in the game yesterday, but they'll take on St. Louis, New York, and Philadelphia to close the rest of your fantasy season. You're loving Mark Sanchez in Week 16, assuming that Nick Foles doesn't come back, and I don't think he will. You're thinking about Eli Manning, who's turnover prone because he's got Odell Beckham Jr. They're going to feast in Week 15. Odell, he might go crazy.
He might.
And, let's use Devin Bailey next week.
Yeah.
Let's even look at the price tag on Sean Hill and DFS.
Bailey might be number one over all these, over Lee, over a bunch of guys.
Bailey is absolutely worth a waiver ad this week. We talked about him last week and hope you went to get him. If you haven't, he's worth a waiver ad. Going back to that, speaking of receivers who are kind of down the map a little bit, is Charles Johnson going to make your piece?
No, not this week.
All right.
No, enough other guys getting healthy there. Greg Jennings got a touchdown for the second straight week. Kyle Rudolph finally back involved.
Has a touchdown. Quiet day, but has a touchdown yesterday.
I'm not betting on Teddy Bridgewater to support 3 pass catchers.
So here's my thing, though, about Charles Johnson is they didn't really have to pass the ball yesterday. They won that game on a couple of block punts.
Yeah.
Crazy. 2 block punts. They hadn't had one all year. 2 block punts for touchdowns yesterday, and that's how they win the football game. So Teddy doesn't need to go deep. In games where he's had to, Charles Johnson has been there. He goes, he's the second guy. He played 49 of 50 snaps yesterday. He's on the field all the time.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to think about using him. You know, they get the New York Jets next week. We'll queue up Monday Night Football here shortly. But the Jets, coming into tonight, have given up 11 pass plays of more than 40 yards. And if you have a burner, I mean, it might be Cordarrelle Patterson, but he played 3 snaps yesterday, so it ain't him. If you have a burner on that Vikings team, it's Charles Johnson, who he's in that Moncrief mold. I'd rather add Moncrief than I would Charles Johnson, but he's in that Moncrief mold where he could have a huge game next week. It could be huge.
I get more starting Charles Johnson over Moncrief going against that Jets secondary. They can't stop nobody. Robert Woods, what do you have? He had 100+ against them last week. Yeah, and before that,
Robert Woods had a nice game yesterday as well for West. 71 yards to lead receivers.
But Robert Woods, 2 touchdowns against the New York Jets. Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Robert Woods is killing you.
I'm saying.
Charles Johnson
might kill you next week. Yeah,
I'm on that.
He's a staple in my daily game lineup. Yeah. We got a little Trues going on. Do you know the Trues? I love the Trues. It's my jam. Because you're wrong and you know right away. Wanted to ask a question. He's in my waiver piece as well. Marcus Wheaton. Probably been dropped in a lot of leagues. Very interestingly, he's back to the number 2 receiver coming out of the bye in Pittsburgh. Are we more than adding Marcus Wheaton, who had 9 targets yesterday, but Ben threw a lot of passes? Are we worried about Martavis Bryant, who, a lot of guys probably started yesterday? I ranked as a solid wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I started him. I forgot to mention that point. We were talking about that game a little bit. One of the most frustrating things, Martavis Bryant, this guy, he's a G. And again, 2 great red zone looks, and Big Ben, maybe it was a hand. Had one, he was wide open down the middle. He couldn't throw it, missed it wide, And early in the game, another red zone target. Big Ben missed the play. He continues to get
a lot of passes.
Yeah, continues to get red zone looks, so it's hard to keep him off the roster, in my opinion. If he keeps getting these looks, Big Ben just in the last couple of weeks is just not hitting him, and he was for 5 games in a row.
Absolutely. But
so are you saying this is no longer the official Martavis Bryant fan club podcast?
I know we've been high on him, and I'm asking if it's no longer. I'm actually saying, are you worried? I want to note.
I'm a little worried.
Well, so I want to note this. Yesterday, they played 92 offensive snaps, which is crazy. And Le'Veon Bell plays 90 of them. Also crazy. But Bryant only played 33 snaps to 69, I want to say, for Marcus Wheaton. And Wheaton has 9 targets. Ben throws 52 passes. Don't quote me. 52 passes yesterday. And Bryant has 4 targets and 1 catch.
That is the problem with Martavis Bryant. Even when he was producing well, he was really only scoring touchdowns, not doing much else.
And he was splitting snaps evenly with Wheaton. Now it's skewed, at least yesterday.
Now he's not scoring touchdowns, so now he's just not doing anything of value at all. Like you said, Marcus Wheaton's getting those targets, probably more value.
Yeah, so Brian is on my roster. I'm not worried. I'm not letting him go, but I'm probably not starting him until I see how that shakes out. The data doesn't sound good to me from the touches and targets this week. That's for sure.
I'm not trusting Marcus Wheaton though.
Yeah, I'm not too into Marcus Wheaton either because, Bryant might have the big game next week, but I'm staying away from
I
Bryant.
think it's looking week 15. Pittsburgh's on the road against hot Atlanta. I'm probably wrong.
I think Le'Veon Bell might have 300 total yards.
I might rock
That's what I
Martavis
think.
against the Falcons.
Remember how bad Pittsburgh's offense is on the road,
William
guys?
Moore's back. That's a completely different defense in Atlanta. Watch him.
No, it's not.
I don't know where I'm wrong.
You know how Big Ben is on the road, though. He's only got 6 passing touchdowns away from home, so bear that in mind when you think about Bryant, even against the Falcons, and
They
William
got
Moore.
Cincinnati next week on the road.
Yeah, that's a tough matchup as well.
But Cincinnati, their defense, they've been so hit or miss. They've been shredded. I mean, Cam had his best game. That was against the Bungles.
Mike Evans didn't shred him yesterday. 9 targets, 4 catches. Vincent
going on
Jackson
there?
only gets 4 balls. I don't know. He's had 18 targets the last 2 weeks, so I'm not stressed about Mike Evans. You're rolling him out there, but it's been a couple of down games.
I'm in Cincinnati. Their defense, they're hot and cold. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I don't know. Yes and no. In then they're out. They're up and they're down. Wrong when it's right.
Like a girl changes clothes.
Black and it's white. Sorry.
Super Bowl offense.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, someone, for coming along with the reference with me. Looking forward to that.
I don't know what y'all say.
Katy Perry.
What was last year?
Last year was Bruno Mars, and I was so pumped. And then we went to the Office Pub, and they showed a burlesque show, and I was so mad because I wanted to watch Bruno Mars.
Girls dancing, but we wanted to see Bruno.
I wanted to see Bruno. You went upstairs to watch Bruno.
Yeah,
I would.
The Chili's saved that halftime show. Bruno Mars sucks.
I love Bruno Mars. So,
Madonna the year before that, come on.
back to the task at hand, Katy Perry's #1 fan. Andre Ellington yesterday against the Falcons. 5 carries, 12 yards, gets hurt. He hasn't rushed for over 2.5 yards per carry in a month. He's got way more touches than he had last year, and he weighs 80 pounds. I saw this coming a mile away. They play the Chiefs next week. So, if his hip pointer isn't a big deal, sounds like it might not be, you're probably going to start him against Kansas City, who doesn't give up a lot of touchdowns, but sure gives up a lot of yards to running backs. However, after that, Ellington has 2 tough matchups. They're not on my sheet. St. Louis and Seattle. If Andre Ellington doesn't play next week and I own him, off my roster. I don't need him at this stage of the season. I'm not going to use him in Week 15 against the Rams. I'm not going to use him in Week 16 against the Seahawks. If Andre Ellington doesn't play next week, he's out. I don't have a space for him. I'm going to pick up a defense that I like for Week 16 before I use Andre Ellington. I don't see the point.
It depends how your roster shakes out. Like I went receiver heavy in most of the leagues, so I would use Ellington as an RB2.
Dan Herron over Andre Ellington rest of season, assuming he doesn't play next week.
Yeah, I mean, I might be able to get on board with that.
Latavius Murray, 2 tough matchups as well.
Tough matchup
but he has a
for
really nice Week 16 or Week 15. He's got Week 15. He has a great matchup, Murray. Murray rest of season. If he doesn't play next week, Ellington, Murray or Ellington?
Yeah, maybe Murray.
Yeah,
Murray anyway. Murray over most people.
I'll tell you, 2 guys.
For most.
It's getting on.
Guys, he's had 8 carries or whatever, man. Like
two guys I might start next week if they don't play. If Latavius Murray doesn't play, I might go ahead and start Marcel Reese Peanut Butter Cup. I think he had.
What they call it?
I don't know.
I think you don't know. You just call him Peanut Butter Cup.
Marcel Reese.
Oh, Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. I was just thinking about him being a fat guy.
Spins have a Katy Perry song. Doesn't get Reese's Peanut Butter
Hey, fat guy. That's
can't remember who they're playing next week. Oakland, my phone just
like Marcel Pot Roast night.
But he was, because McFadden is a mess.
11 carries, 27 yards yesterday. He stinks.
He stinks. Jones-Drew stinks. Reese had, I think, 6 catches, 48 yards. I think he got blown out. But I think if Latavius Murray is out, I think Marcel Reese might get, 12 touches. And if I'm desperate, I'll plug that in.
Yeah, he had a great game. He led the team in total yards yesterday. These guys played 80-plus snaps yesterday against the Rams, and no one is useful.
Peanut Butter Cup.
They lose 52-0, and no one has garbage time production? Nobody. Marcel Reese had 60 yards that led the team. Which brings me to my point. No one on the radar gets started on my team the rest of the season unless Murray is back, especially against the Chiefs in Week 15. No one on the Cardinals gets started on my team rest of the season, not even Michael Floyd. He had 8 targets yesterday. Drew Stanton stinks.
Well, I was going to say, Marion Grice, who took over 5 rushes against the Chiefs
Michael
next
Bush
week.
is there. Michael Bush is there. If I'm starting anybody, I'm paying attention to the practice reports and thinking about Bush against the Chiefs if Ellington doesn't play.
I might go Grice. Grice, I don't think Bush will do much.
Grice is the guy ahead of Stephon Taylor. Taylor only played 17 snaps and had a catch. That's it. Grice is the guy ahead of him.
I'm desperate.
You must be, because I don't care.
Well, I'm starting over. If no Murray, no Ellington, I'm starting Grice or Marcel Reese over Shane Vereen because he stinks.
Well, no.
Yeah.
I'm not starting anyone in that Cardinals backfield.
Shane Vereen, to me, I want to hear your opinion. I can't start him. I can't.
No, you can't.
I started Asiata over him.
Yesterday was a perfect game for him. You thought they were going to have to throw the ball to win. He only gets 2 targets, 26 yards. Yeah,
You're off my team, Shaney.
Let him go. Let him go. Him and Ellington, let him go at this stage of the season. Go get an upside guy with a Week 16 matchup. If you really have championship aspirations, you're probably not starting Vereen anyway. Let him go. Get someone for Week 16 that you want to plug in.
Receivers are nasty, bro.
Well, although really though, there's Jonas Gray, LeGarrette Blount, Brandon Bolden, 3 big weeks. Vereen could be next in line.
Indeed, I guess that's how it's kind of rolled over. However, LeGarrette Blount is not going to lose carries. He had 10 yesterday for 59 yards. They couldn't tackle him. Like the Packers would not tackle him at all. So Brandon Bolden had 3 carries. Jonas Gray gets 1. He's out of the loop. Although he'll probably get back in as it goes. I'm not interested in Vereen. I'm not interested.
Yeah, no. Don't start any New England running back. Save yourself the headache.
Go back. I might start LeGarrette Blount.
He got 10 carries yesterday.
He ain't touches. He's a big man.
He's a big man. Man, between him and Gronkowski,
Oh.
just give those guys the ball and let them run through people. Can't be tackled. Can't be
So they play next week, New
crazy.
England? They play, I don't know.
San Diego. In San Diego. So it's an average matchup. It's okay. I wouldn't get too excited about Blount on the road there, but they're probably going to try to run the ball.
They're gonna win that game, so they're gonna get Blount.
Absolutely.
I'm starting Blount.
I'm going to go back to John's point about Michael Bush if Ellington misses time. That's a team still leading the NFC West, still in the playoff.
Not for long.
Yeah, probably not for long because their quarterback stinks.
He stinks. Drew Stanton stinks.
Because their quarterback stinks, they're not going to go to 2 young running backs who also stink. They're going to try to do something with a veteran Michael Bush.
That
stinks.
100%. Well, he stinks. He hasn't been acclimated to the offense. So if you're going to start Michael Bush, you really have to be paying attention to what Bruce Arians is saying this week and to what the pregame reports are going to be. That's going to be a game-time decision for you. But, yeah, the Chiefs aren't tackling anybody. C.J. Anderson is a beast, by the way. He had another great game yesterday. That's the waiver find of your season right now. He's going to carry you through your fantasy playoffs.
I'm so upset.
And Denver's running the ball plenty because Peyton Manning
Throwing ducks.
can't throw the goal. Can't do it. Not great throws yesterday. He's avoided a bunch of turnovers in the last 2 weeks, but
that 1 touchdown to
Demarius?
Marius, the first one.
was what? Underthrown
Nice
and
lob.
kind of poor?
No, that's nice.
Yeah, it was a lob. It was a duck.
Landed perfectly.
I actually wasn't that impressed.
I'm losing sleep over that. C.J. Anderson, this is like a top 8 stud.
Oh yeah, he's 100% a stud.
Is he
And
starting the last 3 games though?
Yeah. Hundo.
Hundo P.
Hundo. Now, if
What, you thinking
you think
Hillman
about
or
Ronnie
Ball?
Hillman?
Ronnie Hillman back, Monte Ball back.
So
Well,
we'll see how that shake out,
they
but
might.
they might eat some touches. He had
Are they even
almost
coming back though?
one of them will be back at some
One of them.
point, I would think.
Not
but
next week, no.
Hillman had 30 touches last week. If they eat a few, it's kind of like a Mark
Right.
Ingram situation. He's still gonna. Yeah, thank you. Anderson had 30 touches. He can still do just fine with 22. Like he's a cheat. Speaking of the New England Patriots and their rest of season
I was gonna say,
schedule,
sorry, I dropped Tillman.
we need Chris here to keep us in
I
line.
know.
We need our host.
We're all
trying to move on. It's
I-
8:15.
I think you do drop Hillman or Ball off your roster. You're right? Like they're not. I was holding on to them, just thinking maybe they could come back, but no, I'm not. I'm taking them off my roster because I don't think even if they do come back, what are they gonna get? 8 touches?
This is
So
C.J.
they're off
Anderson's
our-
show. You
they're off
probably
our
should
roster.
let him go. You're right. Now, you'll really eat your words if Ronnie Hillman somehow gets 20 touches in that offense, but yeah, I can let him go. Speaking of the Patriots, rest of season schedule, San Diego Chargers, Miami Dolphins, New York Jets. Number one, load up on receivers and Brady's in Week 16. Number two, though, wide receiver threes have been doing a pretty good job against New England, and certainly we saw that yesterday. Now, Jordy Nelson escapes for another 40-yard touchdown. Otherwise, he goes 2 for 6. Yeah, he's incredible. But he goes 2 for 6 against Revis yesterday. He did a nice job locking him down. You know, Randall Cobb has 11 looks and 8 catches, 70-some-odd yards. That's okay, too. But Devontae Adams had a big day, should have had a touchdown, went over 100 yards, made 6 catches, because the New England Patriots have enough bodies to take your top 2 receivers out of the game. So Keenan Allen coming off 2 huge weeks in a row. I'm a little bit worried about him against Darrelle Revis next week. 12 targets, 11 catches, 2 TDs this week. He was
put him on your bench.
Put him on your bench
next week. Bailey over Keenan Allen.
Done. Ian.
Darrelle Revis is
absolutely. And then you're thinking about Malcolm Floyd or Eddie Royal, trying to figure out who that guy's going to be. Royal has 9 targets, 9 catches, and the game-winning touchdown yesterday. And if he goes up against a guy like Logan Ryan, if that's his matchup, Eddie Royal could go ham, and he should see a lot of looks. So I'm paying attention to that heading into next week for Daily Fantasy. In fact,
great call.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, Royal.
That's in the list.
I think I'm going Royal over Floyd. You know, Royal.
If Floyd has a nice depth of target, as you know, but because of that, I would think that they're probably going to commit one of the top 2 guys against him.
Yeah, I ordered the buckets.
Thank you. We're on buckets. Buckets on special tonight. $4, $20.
We got some buckets here.
Call it a night. Come on in. I own one of these. I stole it from Real Sports, the competition. Wouldn't take it from Shark Club. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
To add on with Eddie Royal here, one that's on him.
Taking that home.
The only thing to watch out for with him, he's always last 2 years either scored 0 touchdowns or 3. He scored 1 yesterday. It could throw off that whole balance. Something to watch out for in that.
What was that?
Yeah, we were talking about the bucket. I wasn't listening at all.
Eddie Royal.
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah, I hear it.
Sidebar anyway. Eddie Royal, 0 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. Had 1 yesterday. Balance is thrown off.
So now he's got 2 touchdowns to share next week.
Yeah.
Dig. Anyway, I am interested in the secondary options there next week. Absolutely. Think about it.
Another key note that I made yesterday: Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, great against the run.
Terrible against pass.
Terrible against the pass. And they play. Because
I've made note that they play the Jags in Week 15. That's
they play Miami next.
They play Miami next week. Let's have a watch of tonight's game, which we're going to queue up in just 1 minute. Yeah. Jarvis Landry. That might be a Mike Wallace game, though. They don't throw deep too often, but against Baltimore's secondary, this could be a Wallace game where they want to go deep. No, next week, even though the Jets give up a lot of deep passes as well. Just some rest of season notes. Doug Martin had a big game yesterday. He is the lead back in that committee right now, but he had 18 carries for 58 yards and a touchdown. At halftime, At halftime, he had 12 carries and 53 yards. He carried 6 times after half for 3 yards. Doug Martin still stinks, and it is not a good rest of season schedule. Don't pay any attention to that, even though he is the leader of the committee.
Charles Sims stinks. Bobby Rainey stinks.
Great work in the pass game yesterday for both of them yesterday, but yes, stinks. Kenny Stills, huge game. Huge game yesterday. 6 targets, had 9 the week before. He's had 15 since Brandon Cooks went out. Stills plays Carolina, Chicago, and then someone tough in Week 16.
Fire him up for 2.
Yeah, fire him up. Get him out there next week.
Just be cautious with him. He's a guy who relies on a big play. Most of his production Sunday.
He does.
69-yard score.
So I'm agreeing with that, but you take away that 69-yard score, and he still has roughly 90 yards yesterday. The week before, he has 90 yards. I'm saying they finally might be taking the wheels off, the training wheels off Kenny Stills. 15 looks without Brandon Cooks. He has stepped up. Yeah. I wouldn't use him in my Be Careful matchup in Week 16. I'm sorry, I don't remember who the Saints draw, and they've even said, it's the Falcons. Use him. Kenny Stills, rest of the season, use him. William Moore or not. Let him go. One other rest of season note, Fred Jackson played 70% of the snaps yesterday and had 24 carries. He looked okay, but he gets Oakland in Week 16. Roll him Ouch. That's it for me. You want to talk Monday night, or are we good? Like, are we good? Are we good for pre-Monday stuff?
Gino.
I think so.
Wow, Gino against Miami Dolphins secondary, one of the toughest in the league. Not interested in anybody except for maybe Percy Harvin there. I think they're going to rely on him heavily underneath. Could be a nice PPR play this week. Otherwise, I'm staying away from the Jets. Keep an eye on Chris Johnson, who had some third down work.
I was going to say, keep an eye on Chris Johnson. I actually just picked him up today. You know what I like to do on Mondays? I'll pick up an RB if they're available. Chris Johnson dropped in many leagues, deservedly so. But if you have a roster spot to waste, go and pick him up right now. Maybe Chris Ivory gets hurt. But even if he doesn't, Chris Johnson, last 2 games, he's showed a little
He's
bit
played
of
a little more
burst.
snaps. He showed some burst. He's their passing down guy. Yeah.
And I'm looking at
And
this.
they like passing down in New York. They
And-
trail
yeah.
a lot.
And I'm looking at the schedule. You got to play ahead, look ahead. Week 16, the Jets are going against the Tennessee Titans. Revenge. Chris Johnson might
That's a
have.
great idea.
Chris Johnson
I hate
might
the narrative.
win you a fantasy
Would
championship.
that not be a story? I hate that revenge narrative, but he will be amped. And the season's over. They're probably going to give
Revenge
him
narrative. Titans suck.
Titans suck. Chris
0.2.
Johnson might go for a hundo against the Titans in 2 weeks.
So that's a
Over
great
2.
catch. Another
2
guy
hundo.
in tonight's game that I pulled that same move with is Ryan Tannehill. I added Tannehill in a league where I own Cam Newton, and I'm starting to think about rest of the season. He's been the number 3 quarterback, in standard scoring over the past month. He's got a very nice matchup tonight. They're not going to throw it deep. That's not their MO. They don't even try to. But Tannehill still does a little bit of work with his legs, and he's producing. Really accurate right now underneath, and he's got Jarvis Landry doing the job for him. So I went out and got Tannehill. I'm going to think about him versus Cam the rest of the way. He's a nice rest of the season play.
I think you're definitely starting Ryan Tannehill over Cam at this point. He started doing a lot of good work with his legs. Not typically a runner this year. He's started to do that more. And he's doing it at the right time, getting some big runs there for sure. And I think tonight the Jets, normally a pretty good run defense. Muhammad Wilkerson, he's out tonight. So Ryan Tannehill, he's had a big week. If you have the time, go out and get him.
Yeah.
He should be owned already.
Go out and get him.
No.
Nice comment on our video
We got a
from our
comment.
friend Michael. I hope he's still watching now. It says 3 drunk guys without a clue 2 minutes ago. This is my first beer. I won't debate
Hey, Mike,
whether
if you're
I have
listening-
a clue or not. But
If you're listening, start Jarvis Landry tonight over Mike Wallace.
absolutely,
Put
I got him right
it in
there.
the book. Jarvis Landry, you're talking about the short routes.
That's been the trend for a while because of the short routes. Again,
BFFs,
Jarvis Landry is a PPR menace. And he's going to be again that tonight. I really don't think, despite how bad New York has been against the pass, that they start unleashing it over the top. Just keep an eye on things. Mike Wallace is still worth using, but the guy that takes advantage of the fact that they're throwing underneath is definitely Jarvis Landry. All right, so that's it for tonight. Keep an eye out for Eston's waiver wire piece next week. We're also going to be talking rest of season schedule as a follow-up to that. I really think that now is the time, if ever, to start paying attention to those matchups and to get rid of the extra space on your roster. We have touches and targets review coming Wednesday as well, which will really cue up the rest of the season. Otherwise, for Mike Omalon and Eston McLaren, I'm John Collins, coming live from Shark Club Young and Dundas here in Toronto. Enjoy the football game, guys.
Cheers.